All right, thank you very much, and thank you for having me. To begin, I would just like to tell you a story, I guess like everyone else here. It happened about 2 weeks ago. I was in a village close to where one of my homes are. I was there with one of my staff and 2 of my children. And it was around lunchtime, so I wanted to get something to eat. And for me, even though I've been here for 6 years, my Thai is a bit sketchy. I learned to speak Karen, but my Thai is pretty awful. So anyway, we go into this restaurant. I usually go there ordering the same stuff every time. It's 2 dishes. It's khao pat, maybe some of you know, and pake pao. But this time I didn't want either of those. I wanted to eat chicken cashew. And I remember being in one restaurant one day, and like my friend, he's a Canadian, and he had learned how to pronounce this stuff. So, okay, I'll give this a try too, you know? And I was like, how do you pronounce that again? And, okay, so I gave it a try. I'm not going to say it now, because I'm sure all the Thai here will be insulted, because I'm going to say something wrong. And the lady, she looked at me funny, you know, like, what are you trying to say? What do you really want? And because I was unsure, I was mumbling, you know, just to, like if in class anyone asks you a question, if you mumble enough, there has to be a right word in there, so maybe they'll catch some of it. So I tried again, mumbling even more, changing a few of the words, and she finally seemed to catch on some of what I wanted. So I went back, waiting for 5 minutes, and she's coming back with fried noodles, mama noodles with chicken. So, like, okay, it was good. And kind of the point of this story is, if I can't translate all my thoughts and experiences to you today, I hope still you get something good out of it. What I will tell you, though, sorry, I'm out of my line here. What I will tell you is how I ended up with a family. The first one should be black. Yeah, there you go. How I've been here for 6 years and how I've become blessed with a family of more than 90 children and 20 wonderful staff. I'll try to give you a little background for how that happened. To do that, I need to go back even before the 6 years. I first came to Thailand with my family when I was 12. We came to visit friends of the family who were working on the border with Karen or with refugees from Burma. So we came to visit them and try to get a deeper understanding of the conflict in Burma, to try to bring that back home to Norway, to get sponsors and donations for this group. And as I said, I was 12 at that time. And as a 12-year-old going to a different country, there are many great experiences to be seen and to be discovered. Probably one of my greatest discoveries was the toilets they had here. Like in Norway, at least you can sit down on the toilets. You can take a rest on the toilet. But like here, there was just this hole in the ground. And it's okay if you're trained like the locals here. They can squat. Like if I try to squat, I can reach this far, but if I go any further, I end up tipping backwards. And this has kind of been a ridicule for my children also. They would come and ask me to sit down. And as they do, can you do this? Can you do this? Of course they know I have no chance to sit down like they do. But like they would just watch me sit down, and in the end I'll fall backwards. If I try to put my hands out or my feet wide, maybe I can manage for a while, but so that was my first big experience. But of course that wasn't life-changing in any way. What was life-changing is what happened a few days later. We were traveling into one of the biggest refugee camps in Thailand. It had about 40,000 refugees living there when we came, and there's still about 50,000 people living there now. This refugee camp, just going into that camp, just amazed me. Here, I'm from a small town in Norway, 17,000 people in the whole area. Here we had 40,000 people scrambled together in an area It was stretching maybe 4 kilometers long, going north to south, and you had these massive cliffs in the back, creating like this beautiful backdrop. Like this camp is built in what used to be cotton fields. But you have all these bamboo houses just scrambled together, creating this amazing, how do you say, conflict between the beauty of nature and the horrors of war, the horrors that people can do to each other. Because this is a camp where people have experienced the most violent experiences that war creates. So coming into this camp, we were supposed to visit an orphanage. It had about 40 children living there on a daily basis, and they had another 20, 30 children coming and going. So we came there early December, and they had set up this performance for us, a Christmas celebration. The children performed like dancing, singing, all kind of ways. And after they had done that, me, my sister, and my brother, we were supposed to give out Christmas presents. And I think it was the first time that I had bought toothpaste and soap to give out for Christmas. Like, I would never do that for my friends back home. But to do that, and of course we added some candy to that too, otherwise they wouldn't need a toothpaste. But to see the smiles and the appreciation that the kids had receiving these gifts really changed my heart. So I think being in that camp put something in me that caused me to come back. So 8 years later, I came back. I came back. What is the next picture? Yes. I came back and worked with this guy. His name is Nurkley. I came to work at his Bible school as a teacher, both in English and also some Bible subjects. Just really to kind of rediscover the experiences that I had 8 years earlier. I wanted to have a year to travel and to see if really to find my place in the world. I didn't know what I wanted to study, so I thought, okay, if I give it a year here, surely I would know what to do with my life. Then I would go back to Norway, study, and try to live a normal life. That was my ambition. Nothing high, nothing super low, but something in the middle. But of course, that was not going to happen. Because 6 months into being working at here, I think I have a fancy thing here. These 3 children, they came across from Burma. They had lost their parents 6 years earlier. Their mother had died right after she was born, and their father had passed away shortly after. A retired Karen soldier, he had taken care of these kids for the last 4 or 5 years, and then now the Burmese military were moving forces closer and closer to the village, so they had to run away. They came to my village because the old soldier, he was a friend of the pastor in the church where I was working. At that time, it was already January 2007, and I was about to go to Norway in June. But I was living with, I was living with this couple, a couple I was working with at the Bible school, and we were asked if we could take in the kids. And like I said, I didn't really think much about that, because it wasn't difficult for me to take them in, because I was living in 5 months, and to take care of a few children didn't take too much of a commitment from my side. So they became my first 3 children. But again, things of course didn't turn out the way I planned. Because you see, this girl also, she was the neighbor, and later I learned her story, that her parents had left her, and now she was living with her grandmother. The grandmother is a great lady, but just to hear how parents, through war and through poverty, are forced to leave their children, this made me realize that there was a deeper issue here that I hadn't seen. Sometimes I get focused just on where I am, just on my little work at the Bible school with these kids, that I couldn't see the children that were living in my same village, and I couldn't see their needs. But when I had these 3 children living with me, there was no way for me to look beyond that anymore. So I decided to give it 2 more years of my time to see if there was something that I could do. After, or before leaving Norway, we already had these 20 children, 20 plus children living in our home. That was like, it happened all in 4 months without really any plan. We just, together with Nørkley, the guy I was working with at the Bible school, we checked out the village. We saw the villages around and what kids needed help. It all happened too quick sometimes. I think if I knew that this would happen, probably I would have thought it through a little longer, but I hope my choice would have been the same, because I love these kids to death. Then kind of what happens is these kids, they need a home. They couldn't just live in this place. Because my girls were living in this home, and the boys were living in a neighbor's home. So we started to ask an American couple if they could support building a new orphanage. So I sat down with Nørkley. He wrote a quick proposal asking for money for a new house. And later I told him, I think we need toilets. I think we need a kitchen. Yeah, of course we need that. How can you have 30 children living there without any stuff like that? So we wrote another letter, and the American couple graciously gave us everything that we needed. And going back to Norway, I was sitting on the plane, and usually they force you to close the windows because people want to try to sleep. But I couldn't sleep. I was going back, and I wanted to open the window because the sun was rising. So I opened the windows and I started to look towards the east, and I couldn't stop thinking about these kids. And I was broken. A year earlier, I had no idea who these kids were. I had no idea of their needs. I had no idea. Sorry. And here I was. I couldn't close my eyes to these faces anymore. The children in need, that wasn't just a concept. That wasn't just something you heard about in the news. This situation these kids had a name. They had a smile. they had a cry. And I was, God, where can I be in this? How can you use me to reach and to help a situation like that? It seemed impossible for me to grasp. But it also made me realize that I wasn't the first one who had heard these cries. I wasn't the first one who had seen the smiles and who loved these children. So as a believer, I could see that God had seen these children, that He had a plan for me to come to Thailand, to experience this. And I knew that if God was with me, we had a future, we had a hope. So coming back to Norway, just weeks before, I had already caught some funny bacteria. I was already skinny. I had stomach problems for 4 weeks. I think the look of me when my mother picked me up at the airport, I think kind of scared her. I didn't ask her for permission to come back. But I need to say, my family have been very supportive of me being here. So I'm forever grateful for my family. And that's also what I wanted to give to the children. The safety and the love that I experienced from my own family. It was what I wanted to give to these children. 2 months later, I came back to Thailand with a visa to stay here for another year. But my heart was lost here forever. And of course, now I'm here for the 6th year. I'm actually going on the 7th year now. And there's... and it's not because I have done something great, but it's because something great has touched me. So I just want to close with a few words. I'll show you a few pictures first, and then I'll close. We opened the second home 2 years later. Some of my kids from the first home are here, so it's not as big as it looks like in the picture. And then this is the last picture we took together 2 weeks ago. We celebrated Christmas. To finish with some thoughts. Looking back on these 6 years, it's been a lot of good times. It's been a lot of difficult times. It's been times where I cried for the children, cried with the children, but most of it has been happy. Because these children, even though they have a loss, they still need your love. They don't need to think about what they don't have. You need to give them what they need. And for me, the greatest thing I see is when I can have fun with my kids, when I can laugh with my kids, when we can joke. That's what keeps me here. But looking back at all that, I am so thankful to God for the provision that He has been, for the grace that He has given us. I'll finish with our motto, because it's taken from a scripture in Psalms 27, I think. It says that even though my father and my mother has forsaken me, I will hold you close. And that's what we have felt. That's what my experience is. So thank you very much for your time.